There's a strange kind of silence that settles in when you realize you're not really wanted, not because anyone says it outright, not because they slam doors in your face or scream at you to leave. No, it's in the hesitation before your name is mentioned, the silence when you enter a room, the way eyes meet and dart away like you were never supposed to be there. That's how it's always been with my family. Growing up, I used to wonder what was wrong with me, why I didn't fit, why every cousin, every aunt and uncle seemed to walk through life on a carpet rolled out by love and praise, while I tiptoed across eggshells, trying not to crack whatever invisible rule I hadn't been told about. My mother, bless her, never talked badly about them. She just used to smile tightly and say, "Some families are born, some are built. Maybe one day you'll get to build yours." At the time, I didn't understand what she meant. I do now. It started with a photo, a group selfie taken at some upscale restaurant I didn't recognize. Amber lights, leather seats, wine glasses catching the glow. In the center of it all was Uncle Ravi, his salt hand, pepper beard trimmed sharp, arm around Aunt Nina. My cousins filled the background laughing, posing with cocktails, dressed like they were shooting an ad for something I couldn't afford. The caption read, "Family dinner this weekend red hash blessed hash cousins. Night no tag, no mention, just another scroll. Past reminder that I was, as always, on the outside of the inside joke." So I was surprised when, 2 days later, I got a text from Cousin Maya. "Hey, dinner is this Saturday. Thought I'd let you know in case you wanted to come. Everyone's invited. No address. No time, no enthusiasm, just a breadcrumb dropped on my side of the fence. For a few hours I debated. I turned the message over in my mind, wondered if I should even bother replying. But then a deeper voice, quieter, lonelier, spoke from inside me. "Go, just show up, show them you're not invisible, that you exist, that you can." Saturday came, I wore a black dress. Not fancy, not flashy, just enough to blend. I did my hair like my mom used to, simple, soft waves. I looked in the mirror and told myself not to expect anything. I told myself it didn't matter if no one smiled when I arrived. I was doing this for me. The restaurant was fancier than I'd imagined. One of those places where the valet takes your keys like you should already know how it works. Inside, there were tall golden sconces on the walls, low ambient lighting, and the soft clink of forks against porcelain plates. And then I saw them, a long table near the window, maybe 12 seats. Everyone was already there, glasses half full, laughter spilling over plates of oysters and charcuterie boards. For a moment, I hesitated. A small part of me hoped someone would spot me and wave me over. Instead, Maya looked up, blinked, and gave a tight, surprised smile. She nudged her brother, whispered something. I saw his brow raise. They said nothing. I walked toward them. Uncle Ravi turned his head. Aunt Nina stared at her wine. Before I could reach the table, a waiter stepped in front of me. "Reservation name?" he asked politely. I pointed to the group. "I'm with them." He glanced at the seating chart on his tablet. "I'm sorry, ma'am, this table is reserved for family." And there it was, those 5 words, "This table is for family." I looked at him. Then at them. No one corrected him. No one said, "She is family." No one stood up to pull over a chair. They just sat there, quiet, watching. Maya mouthed something that looked like sorry, but it was too little. Too late, the waiter, sensing the tension, cleared his throat. "We do have a small too. Up near the back, if you'd prefer that." I nodded. My voice had lodged itself somewhere between my pride and my heartbreak. The table was small, near the kitchen. Every so often, a busboy would bump into the back of my chair, and I'd flinch like it was my fault. I ordered water. I wasn't hungry. I couldn't stop watching them, their glasses refilled like magic. Plates came and went: lobster, ribeye, foie gras, truffle mac, and cheese. Bottles of wine opened like celebration was an hourly event. They didn't look at me again, but I looked. Because I needed to remember this. Every laugh that didn't include me. Every story that I knew the ending to but wasn't asked to retell. Every inside joke that I was left outside of. And when the dessert menu came and the waiter walked back to their table with the tablet holding the digital bill, I saw the number jump, $2,146, 70 and climbing. I froze. A storm was brewing behind their laughter. I could feel it. Something was coming. And I had a terrible feeling I was about to be dragged into it. Time stretches differently when you're seated on the outskirts of people who once called you family. Every few minutes, I'd glance up from my untouched water, pretending to check my phone while catching pieces of their conversation like stray embers from a fire. I was no longer allowed to sit around. They were happy, or at least they knew how to perform it well. Cousin Ishon was halfway through a story about his last trip to Thailand, where he supposedly broke the bank on rooftop bars and accidentally bought a monkey. The table roared with laughter. Aunt Nina leaned into the chaos, her bangles clinking as she refilled glasses and whispered sarcastic jabs into Uncle Ravi's ear, pretending she wasn't watching me from the corner of her eye. But she was. They all were, not obviously, not directly, but with that twitch of the mouth when I shifted in my seat. With the whisper that passed from one cousin to another, followed by barely contained smirks. It wasn't hate. It was worse. It was amusement. I lowered my eyes and let the memory surface, one I hadn't thought of in years. I was 8. It was holy, and the whole family had gathered at our old ancestral home. The courtyard had been alive with color and noise, laughter echoing off the brick walls. I was running around barefoot, cheeks streaked in blue and yellow. I remember trying to join the cousins as they filled water balloons. But when I got close, the laughter dulled. They blocked the bucket. One of them, maybe Ria, maybe Tara, looked at me and said with that syrupy cruelty only kids possess, "Go play with your mother's side. You don't look like us anyway." I didn't know what that meant. Not then. It was only years later I found out that my father, gone before I could remember him, had been from a different caste. Lower by their standards, not pure. My mother raised me alone, and though she wore their last name, she never truly wore their acceptance. And by extension, neither did I. Back at the restaurant, the mood at their table was tipping into something sloppier. The wine was taking effect, voices grew louder, a second bottle of champagne popped. A few chairs shifted as someone tried to include an extra cousin who showed up late, but notably still got a seat. The waiter passed by me again, offering a sympathetic smile. I smiled back and shook my head, still just the water. I looked again at the digital bill mounted on the little tablet near the host's side of the table. I wasn't trying to, but the damn thing was right in my line of sight. $2 $184. 30 then $2 $204. 75 they just ordered a round of aged Japanese whiskey. $65 a glass. I knew because I had once looked it up, before deciding not to buy it as a birthday gift for myself last year. The irony didn't escape me, and then the laughter died. A hush spread across the table like someone had flipped a switch. I looked up. The waiter was back this time with a folded leather bill holder in his hands, the black kind with the gold trim, the kind that looked too heavy for what it carried. "Here we are," he said cheerfully, placing it in front of Uncle Ravi. Uncle Ravi stared at it, then at the digital amount on the tablet beside him. He blinked. "Wow," he said, laughing stiffly. "I didn't think we'd go that far." Cousin Ishon whistled. "That's gotta be, what, $2,000, 20, 200 and change," said Maya, checking the screen. "Oof," someone whistled. Another snorted. "I mean, we can split it," offered Ria, pulling her tiny clutch onto her lap. Uncle Ravi cleared his throat. "Actually," he looked across the table, then straight at me. I didn't move. The silence now had teeth. It wasn't awkward. It was expectant. They were waiting. Uncle Ravi leaned back in his chair and spoke in a tone that was almost too casual. "Since you came uninvited," he said, with a smile that didn't reach his eyes, "you can take care of the bill, right?" There was a pause. Then laughter, tight, nervous, mocking. "Oh my God, Ravi," Aunt Nina said, swatting his arm. "Stop, she'll take it seriously." But he didn't correct himself. Neither did anyone else. Cousin Tara sipped her wine and muttered, "Well, she did get a free dinner, technically. I didn't eat anything," I said quietly. My voice barely made it across the table. More laughter, softer this time, dripping sarcasm. "Water's free then," Ishan joked. I stared at them, every face, every smirk, every twisted version of what love should have looked like. Aunt Nina tilted her head. "Come on, sweetheart, it's just a joke." But that's the thing about jokes. If you're always the punchline, eventually you stop laughing. I stood up, pushed my chair in, slowly, walked toward the table. The waiter, sensing something was off, stepped forward, but I held up my hand. I reached into my small purse and pulled out my card, the black one, the one that weighed just slightly more than a future should. I looked Uncle Ravi in the eye. "Actually," I said with the calm of 1,000 swallowed storms, "it's no problem." The smirks began to falter. I turned to the waiter. "Put the whole bill on this," he hesitated. "Mammy, are you sure? Very?" He took it, still confused, and walked off to process it. I stood there, letting the silence settle. No one laughed now. "Wow," whispered Maya. "I didn't know you had a... You didn't know a lot of things," I said. "And that's okay." I smiled, not out of spite, not even out of triumph, just peace, because sometimes revenge isn't loud. It doesn't have to be cruel. Sometimes the sweetest revenge is letting them watch you rise. The waiter returned. "Transaction approved." I took the receipt, signed it, and left the tip they didn't deserve. But I did. Then I turned and walked toward the door. Not rushed, not dramatic, just enough to let every step echo behind me. The thing about leaving a room with your dignity intact is that it hurts just as much as staying. Maybe more. You tell yourself it's strength. You say, "I chose to walk away." But a part of you, that quiet, desperate part that still clings to childhood dreams of being accepted, stands behind like a ghost, waiting to be called back. But they didn't call me back. Not one of them. Not even Maya, who had texted me just enough to absolve herself. I walked through the restaurant, past rows of white tablecloths and tables full of real families who laughed without cruelty, who poured wine with warmth instead of hierarchy. I felt my phone vibrate in my hand, but I didn't check it. I stepped outside into the cool night air, and I breathed, deep, long, controlled. Because I had just paid $2,204.75 bill for a dinner I hadn't eaten, for people who had never made space for me, for a family who wore the title but not the meaning. But I wasn't angry, not anymore. I was done giving them that power. Later that night, I finally checked my phone. Missed calls, 1 texts, 3 all from Maya. "Hey, you didn't have to do that. It was just a joke. Can we talk?" I let the screen go dark. The next morning, the texts kept coming, not just from her now, but from others. "Tara, that was seriously classy of you. Also, are you doing okay? You seem different." "Uncle Ravi, even, didn't mean to offend you. Things just got out of hand. Let's talk sometime." It was almost funny. The same people who barely acknowledged me unless they needed a body in a group photo were now trying to reach out. Not because they missed me, not because they loved me, because they had questions. That Monday, the news broke. Not front page news, of course, just a quiet feature on the business blog circuit. The silent partner behind startup name raises $14 million in Series B funding. There was a photo. Not of me. I'm too careful for that. But the article included a small mention. The company credits much of its early growth to a silent investor who helped scale the platform during its infancy, known only as a Mara. Sources say the investor may be preparing to go public with other ventures. I hadn't planned to reveal anything. That night at the restaurant hadn't been a performance. It had been a decision, quiet, final, but apparently someone had done some digging. And now the whispers had turned into calls. They started small. Aunt Nina posted a picture of the dinner with a new caption, "So proud of our niece doing big things." Read, niece. Me, the one who wasn't family enough to sit at the table. Then came the DM. Cousins I hadn't spoken to in years suddenly liked old photos. Commented things like, fire queen energy, or proud to be related. Even Uncle Ravi, who once told my mother I was a burden she carried alone, sent me an invitation to his 60th birthday party. It had a little handwritten note, "Would love for you to say a few words. Family's proud of you. Family." That word again, thrown around like confetti. But this time, I didn't feel the need to pick up the pieces. A week passed, I ignored every message, every ping. Then on Friday night, I hosted a dinner of my own. It was quiet, intimate, the opposite of the restaurant chaos, just 10 people, not by blood but by choice. My best friend from college, who once lent me rent money. My old boss, who pushed me to apply for that accelerator. My co-founder, my partner, and my mother smiling, radiant, dressed in the same blue sari she wore to my graduation years ago. The table was long, simple, candles lit, real laughter, real family. At the head of the table, I placed a small sign on a wooden easel. Just 5 words, "This table is for family." Below that, chosen, not given. As we passed food and shared stories, someone joked, "So what really happened at that dinner, the $201?" I smiled, shrugged. It cost me less than pretending they mattered. 2 weeks after that dinner, the one where I paid $200 to prove a point I didn't even plan to make, my phone buzzed with yet another message from Uncle Ravi. "Can we talk? Just 10 minutes. I think we should clear the air." It was the 3rd message from him that week. Before that, it was Tara, then Ishon. Even Aunt Nina had sent a voice note, rambling for over 3 minutes about misunderstandings, generational differences, and how we've always seen you as one of our own. I didn't respond, not because I was bitter, but because I didn't need to anymore. The girl who once begged for a seat at their table had built her own, and there wasn't an empty chair in sight. The truth is, success doesn't heal every wound. There are scars I still carry, memories that still sting when I'm alone in a quiet room. The feeling of being 8 years old and hearing them whisper about how I wasn't really family, how I didn't belong. Money can't erase that. Accomplishments can't rewrite that pain, but what they can do is give you perspective. They show you that the people who once looked down on you weren't standing taller, they were just standing on shaky ground. On a warm September evening, I got a text from Meyer again. "We're hosting another dinner this weekend, family only. Hope you'll come. Things feel weird without you." There it was again. That word, family. This time I replied, "Thanks, but I'll pass. Got plans with mine." She read it instantly. Didn't respond, and that was fine, because that same night I was back at my table, our table. The one I had built piece by piece, not with silver cutlery or 5-star menus, but with people who had held my hand through storms, sat beside me through self-doubt, and never once made me question whether I belonged. We were gathered under fairy lights, home-made food spread across mismatched serving plates, someone's dog curled under the table, and music playing softly in the background. Laughter wasn't forced, stories weren't filtered, no one was calculating the cost of someone else's presence. My mother sat to my left, sipping chai and watching me with pride that couldn't be faked. She hadn't said much since the incident, but tonight, after dessert, she reached over and touched my hand. "You didn't need to prove anything to them, she said softly. I know, but I'm glad you reminded yourself who you are. I smiled. My throat thickened, but I didn't cry because she was right. A few weeks later, I received a letter. A real one, stamped, folded, and carefully written in Uncle Ravi's handwriting. Inside it was a check for $204.75. Folded with a note, "This was never our intention. We owe you this, and more." I didn't cash it. I didn't rip it up either. I placed it in a drawer because forgiveness doesn't mean reopening doors. It just means you stop letting the locked ones take up space in your heart. A month later, I launched a scholarship fund for first-generation students from families like mine. We named it the Chosen Family Grant. At the launch event, someone asked why I chose that name. I paused, smiled, and said, because some of us grow up thinking we're outsiders, thinking we'll never be invited in, but eventually we learn. We were never meant to sit at their table. We were meant to build our own. Applause followed, but what mattered more was the quiet nod from a girl in the front row. Maybe 18, maybe younger, maybe someone who had heard this table is for family, one too many times in her own life. I nodded back. She understood. Epilogue. That sign still sits at the head of my table, worn wood, hand-carved letters. A little crooked, "This table is for family," and just below it, "Chosen, not given, we still gather." We still eat too much, laugh too loud, and dance to songs we barely know the words to. And every time someone new joins us, a partner, a friend, a neighbor, we pull up a chair. Because here, no one has to prove their worth. Here, everyone belongs.